So both rival and inspiration to the Christian religion, this underground temple here, pictured this Mithra or underground chamber, represents a cave, and it quite literally is a cave since it's underground. This cave, remember the entrance to the cave I was talking about, this infers a desire to keep this occulted tradition intact and for seekers only, because not everyone, most people are not, let's be honest, in this day and age, are not going to be seekers, okay? That isn't to say that we cannot build a planet of seekers right now. There have been times in human history where I believe that there were entire civilizations of seekers, entire civilizations of people who saw the world in a completely different way than today, and the entire civilization would have benefited greatly, right, by this collective honoring of the inner dimensions, the inner resources, and the wisdom, right, that we all possess. So unlike an above-ground church, which is accessible to all, Mithraic places of worship involved the process of descending into the ground itself as a ceremonial act of reverence. It also symbolizes the entering of one's own inner dimensions of divinity, right? After all, your unconscious is about 95% in the driver's seat in your life, right? So accessing these hidden dimensions, accessing the deep dimensions of the self, this unconscious, right? The ancients knew this, right? At least the ancient seekers knew this, right? The ones who were involved in these practices and really going into their inner dimension and accessing their divine resources, right? And also this symbolized, this going into the cave, going underground, symbolizes the cycle of life and its relation to the path of the sun between the solstices, because Mithra was a sun god primarily, or also you could say a transformational character, because the sun is seen as a transformational entity or transformational god or transformational object, right? And so too, the journey, the hero's journey or the life's journey of a man or a woman is also a transformational process, right? So not already, I should say, to actively pursue their inner dimensions in this way, both symbolically and actually. Hence this ceremonial site being located well below the surface of a Catholic church, right? It's very important to understand that it wasn't just put underneath this church because it was going to add to the mystique, right? That wasn't the idea, right? It was because it was intentional. You were part of a ceremony, and this was to prepare you. Ceremonies are always done to prepare you, to make you contemplate, to make you, to bring you into a deeper understanding, right? Instead of, as opposed to sitting at a desk in a schoolroom somewhere and having some professor, some teacher, blah, 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 this and that, and then you have to repeat it, right? Which is just a bunch of crap. You are actually engaged in some action, physically, spiritually, mentally, everything, emotionally. All of your five senses should be activated, right? And the locus of your attention, right? Everything in your being should be part of this experience, right? This is what these ceremonies are about, and this is why ceremonies are so important. You're going to have a tendency to not just remember or recall from a conscious state, but unconsciously these serve to imprint upon you, right? Certain teachings that maybe years later, certain parts of these teachings will be revealed to you in other ways, and you'll go, oh, that's what that was about, or it might come to you in a dream or something, right? So this particular Mithraic place of worship was rediscovered around the mid-1800s underneath the Basilica of San Clemente in Rome. This particular Catholic church was completed by 1100 AD. This Persian religious symbol, hidden deep under the very roots of our own Western civilization, is yet another testament to the rich history of the mystic traditions of old. Unlike the religious traditions found in Persia and India, for example, where many variations on religious orders and traditions exist, I can say, especially because things have changed in Iran with the Islamic Revolution and Islam being there for a long time, but I can say with India that the religions there are not dogmatic, in the sense that if you become an enlightened being in some sense, you can essentially start your own faith. You can go any which way you want to find your own divinity. There's no one way to do it, right? As opposed in the West, there's a playbook. It's called the Bible, and you have to follow it. And yes, you might interpret it this way or that, but this is the playbook, right? Whereas in India, for example, there are writings. There are, of course, there's the Bhagavad Gita, there's the Upanishads, there's all of these writings, but at the end of the day, it's your responsibility to discover your own divinity, if that is the path that you choose for yourself. And how you do it is the varying nature of the spiritual and religious practices of India is it's mind-boggling. It's absolutely mind-boggling. So the subcategories of Christian religions in the West did not have to hide in secret, right? The esoteric orders had to hide in secret, but the official, by the playbook sort of religions, the Christian religions, had, there were variances and there were disagreements, of course, because it was all just, there was some power grab happening, right? But in the West, it's only been in the past few recent centuries that you've seen some really very, very diverse variations, wide variations on the Christian religion. You've only seen that fairly recently. And even in the past couple centuries, I would say only in the past maybe 50 years have you seen some real fundamental changes happening, right? Which is very exciting. So despite having a history of persecution, operative theologies, mystical organizations, and secret esoteric orders have thrived in the West under the shadow of the Catholic Church from the very beginning. After all, these esoteric traditions are this esoteric knowledge, this occulted knowledge, is the very fountainhead of knowledge, of understanding for religions, for mainstream religions, right? This survival, though, for secret orders was only possible in the shadows. They had to hide, right? Mithraism was wiped out by the 4th century in the Roman Empire. It really started to catch on and got more popular, and it reached a critical mass, I think, where enough people knew about it, where it was being viewed from the point of the Holy Roman Christian Church, that it was had to be taken care of, because it was seen as a quite a real potential threat or a rival to the Christian Church. So this lends much credence to the attitudes of mistrust and blame toward many esoteric orders over the century. Using this framework of Mithraism, and how Mithraism really encouraged the participants to really find their own divinity, right? This is a great starting point for many secret orders that exist today. But this is only a starting point, right? This is only a starting point. By the way, this image here is a trace. This is called a tracing board. This is a Freemasonic symbolism here. And the initiates are tasked with really studying these tracing boards, because they have quite a lot. There's quite a lot being told here. And keeping these secretive, right? There's a lot of benefit to not expressing these explicitly in language. And of course, one big secret though is that you're going to understand things or come into your own divinity in your own way, right? It doesn't mean there isn't a narrative, or it doesn't mean that there's meaning that we can share in an esoteric order together, because there very much is. But then when you reach a certain level, it's really you're accessing your own divinity, right? And that can't be transferred. So, excuse me. Many of the esoteric orders that are active today can offer knowledge, they can offer spiritual growth, and kinship. They can offer brotherhood or sisterhood. They're a great way to be initiated into the mysteries, right? There is some distrust of secret orders, which seems natural, because an order that seems to operate in secret, you may not trust them. What are they up to? What kind of agenda, right? They don't want their true intentions known, because if everyone knows what they're really up to, then they'll all be put in jail. We need to keep an eye on these people, right? But of course, the reason these orders are traditionally have been secretive, one, is for persecution, right? And two, they don't want their teachings to be completely watered down, right? Like the teachings from the Bible. Many religions have just watered down these teachings to the point where they're pretty much just meaningless. Okay. So if you find yourself invited to an esoteric order, seminar, or meeting, by perhaps frequenting, maybe you're frequenting an esoteric bookstore, hint, hint, that's a good way to maybe meet this type of person if you're interested, possibly. No guarantees, I don't know. If you meet one of these people at an esoteric bookstore, or maybe some sort of convention or something, or from a meetup group, if you're invited, the opportunity should definitely be explored. A word of warning, however: it is ultimately your own path or connection with the divine which is the most primary and most important point of seeking the timeless wisdom. Because after all, no esoteric order can tell you how to do anything. It can only point you in the general direction. Your own understanding is always primary. And when I say your own understanding, what I mean is you don't, or you shouldn't, just start your own, just kind of wing it and make up your own thing as you go, right? We have so many teachers, so many esoteric traditions for a reason, right? They are guarding, they are cultivating, they are growing very useful information, very useful knowledge, right? So this isn't about just making it up as you go, right? And while it's necessary for you to always possess a beginner's mind and to embrace the new teachings that are brought to you, right, from people you trust, from spiritual teachers, from the ones that speak to you, right, the seeker shall soon be called upon to teach at least as much as they take it upon themselves to learn from others. Okay? So this is a two-way street. This isn't you just get to sit down and learn all this stuff in a vacuum. There are people that do that. There are people that, but at some point, you either move on to something else and you just forget about, you kind of just, okay, I learned it intellectually, but I didn't really imprint it unconsciously, and I don't really live that way. I don't really believe this stuff. It's just an interesting sort of hobby, sort of thing I dabbled in just so I could have something interesting to say at parties, right? There are people like that, and then eventually they move on to something else, right? Sometimes they come back to it, right? And they see, whoa, wait a minute. There's something here. Maybe they'll have an experience and then they come back to it. And that's, of course, that's not the seeker I'm talking about. That's just a seeker of information, right? But a seeker of understanding, right, is what you want to, that's what you really want to cultivate for yourself. So to illustrate this point of the importance of following your own divine understanding instead of slavishly following a guru, right? There's an old parable where a beggar is asking strangers that pass by to give him some money, right? And the beggar says, spare some change. And the beggar's asking this to a stranger. Could you spare some change? And the stranger says he has nothing to give the beggar. And then he asks the beggar what he's sitting on. And the beggar replies, I'm not sitting on anything. It's just some old box. I've been sitting on this box day after day for years. And the stranger asks him, but have you ever looked inside this box? And the beggar gives him a strange look and he says, why should I? There's nothing in this old box. I think you should look inside, the stranger insists. The beggar manages to pry open this dingy old box he's been sitting on. And to his astonishment, he finds that this box is completely filled with gold. The stranger in this parable is akin to the spiritual teacher whom has no secrets to give anyone that they don't already possess themselves, right? This stranger prompts the beggar to look inside several times. This looking inside obviously doesn't mean look inside the box, right? It's a metaphysical meaning, right? I think you should look inside, meaning I think you should trust your own instincts. You should begin to get acquainted with your inner resources, right? You should start looking here. Doesn't mean you're going to find the answer tomorrow. It doesn't mean things are going to change for you overnight, right? But you should look inside. So the teacher merely offers a suggestion. He doesn't offer a secret. It's not like if you go to some Freemason meeting and your expectation is, okay, tell me the secrets. What's the number one secret you guys have? What are all your secrets, right? First of all, what they would tell you would be something that wouldn't make any sense to you, because you haven't done the work required. And also, it would be something akin to accessing your own resources in a sense as well, right? All of the greatest secrets are within yourself, right? So the teacher's offering this suggestion to look inside. Look inside. He's telling the beggar, look inside. And the beggar's like, why should I? The beggar doesn't understand the power of their own divinity, the power of their own inner resources, right? But this stranger who, and a spiritual teacher could appear in any form. They may be teaching you something that you don't even realize, that they themselves have no idea that they're teaching you something very profound. That's happened to me many times with interactions with all sorts of different people, right? So this spiritual teacher, or this stranger, this was a stranger on the street, right, is prompting the beggar to discover their own lost knowledge and hidden treasure within themselves. So this is the end of part 19. This is a quote from Miyamoto Musashi, who authored the Book of Five Rings. Fantastic book. Highly recommended. Out there is nothing, or I should, let me back that up. There is nothing outside of yourself that can ever enable you to get better, stronger, richer, quicker, or smarter. Everything is within. Everything exists. Seek nothing outside of yourself. So what Musashi is saying is essentially there's no infomercial or product that, as seen on TV type of products or anything else that you can order, and there's no person out there, just like there's no stranger who is going to tell you what to do, right? All of that, knowing what to do, comes from here. You will know what to do if you access your own inner resources. If you become acquainted with your inner watcher, if you become acquainted with your awareness through many countless numbers of practices, which I have been talking about through this entire series. If you become acquainted with the watcher within, those answers just naturally come out, and you don't have to rack your brain. You don't have to spend hours and hours Googling stuff. What do I do? You don't have to you don't have to find a guru, right? Which is, the guru has all of these. So imagine this or that guru has all of these followers, and the guru is there to really teach you. Hopefully, you learn a lesson eventually that you've foolishly been giving all of your money and time and attention to this guru, and he'll gladly take all your money, or she'll gladly take all your money until such a time that you graduate. And what graduating means, of course, is realizing, wait, I've got all of the same tools that this guru has. Holy crap, I've been wasting my time, wasting my money, right? So that's essentially the teaching of part 19. So I will see you guys next week for part 20.